The room was already buzzing when the announcer called the next name, but no one, especially Simon, expected what was about to happen. Cameras glided across the judges' table, catching half-smiles and polite boredom, the kind that comes after hours of auditions. Then a slim Filipino man in his early 30s walked onto the stage, shoulders slightly tense, eyes shining with a mix of nerves and hope. He wore a simple black jacket, neatly pressed trousers, and his hair was styled in a classic pompadour that hinted at something familiar. A few chuckles rippled through the audience before he even spoke. Simon leaned back, arms crossed, already forming an opinion. And if you've ever judged someone too quickly, stay with this story till the very end, because what happens next might just change how you see courage forever. If moments like this move you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like these deserve to be shared. The contestant introduced himself softly, his accent warm and sincere, explaining that he had traveled far, carrying not just a suitcase but years of dreams and doubts. He said music was his refuge growing up, a way to escape the noise of hardship and the quiet fear of never being enough. When Simon asked what he would be singing, the man paused, smiled gently, and answered with one word, Elvis. That single word triggered laughter, some amused, some skeptical. Even one judge raised an eyebrow. Elvis impersonators had come and gone, most fading as quickly as they appeared. Simon smirked, clearly expecting another forgettable act. The audience braced themselves, phones ready, not for greatness, but for entertainment of a different kind. The music began simply, almost shyly. The first notes were careful, controlled, and intentionally restrained. His voice was decent, nothing extraordinary, and you could sense the judges settling into their chairs, ready to let the song play out politely. Simon glanced sideways, his expression saying, "I've seen this before." The audience clapped lightly in rhythm, supportive but unconvinced. The singer's hands trembled slightly as he gripped the microphone, his eyes briefly closing as if he were holding something back. What no one knew was that inside him, a battle was raging, between fear and faith, between the memory of every person who had laughed at his dream and the quiet voice telling him this was his moment. As the song moved into the second verse, something subtle changed. His posture straightened. His breathing deepened. The nervous tremor in his hands steadied. The voice grew warmer, richer, carrying a texture that felt less like imitation and more like homage. A few audience members leaned forward. One judge stopped scribbling notes and looked up. Simon's smirk faded, replaced by curiosity. The singer wasn't rushing. He was building something, layer by layer, like a wave slowly pulling back before crashing onto shore. He thought of his childhood, of singing in small family gatherings, of practicing in front of cracked mirrors, pretending the applause was real. He remembered the long nights working jobs that drained his body but never his dream, and the voices that told him talent wasn't enough, that dreams were luxuries for other people. As the music swelled, he let those memories fuel him instead of breaking him. His eyes opened, and for the first time, he looked straight at the judges, not with arrogance, but with quiet resolve. Then came the last chorus. The moment no one expected. The band hit harder, the tempo lifted, and the singer unleashed a powerful, controlled belt that filled the entire hall. It wasn't just loud, it was precise, emotional, and electrifying. His voice carried the raw grit of rock and roll with the soul of someone who had lived every lyric. The audience gasped. Some stood up instinctively. One judge's mouth fell open. Simon's eyes widened as he leaned forward, elbows on the table, completely locked in. This wasn't an impersonation anymore. This was a resurrection of spirit. The singer moved with confidence now, channeling the energy of Elvis while remaining unmistakably himself. Every note landed exactly where it needed to. Every pause carried tension. When he hit the final note, he held it just long enough to make the room feel like it might explode, and then he released it, stepping back into silence. For half a second, the world stood still. Then the room erupted. Cheers, screams, a standing ovation that rose like a tidal wave. People wiped away tears they didn't expect to shed. Simon stood up too. Slowly. Almost reluctantly. But he was clapping, genuinely, a look of stunned respect on his face. When the noise finally settled, Simon spoke, his voice quieter than usual. He admitted he hadn't expected that. He said he was ready to dismiss the act before it even began, and that what he had just witnessed was a reminder of why moments like these mattered. The other judges echoed the sentiment, praising not just the voice, but the journey they could feel in every note. The singer listened, overwhelmed, tears streaming freely now. He bowed his head, whispering thank you over and over, not just to the judges, but to the younger version of himself who never gave up. When the votes came in, they were unanimous. He was going through. But more than that, he had earned something deeper, belief. From the judges, from the audience, and finally, from himself. As he walked off the stage, still shaking, he knew his life had changed. Not because he sounded like a legend, but because he proved that dreams don't have expiration dates, and doubt doesn't get the final say. And if this story touched you, if it reminded you to keep going even when others don't see your potential, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because the next story might be the one that inspires someone else to stand tall at the last second and shock the world. The lights dimmed just enough to signal another audition, and Simon exhaled quietly, already preparing himself for disappointment. After hours of performances, surprises were rare. Then a Filipino man stepped onto the stage, mid-30s, slim build, calm smile hiding nervous eyes. He adjusted the microphone with careful hands, nodding respectfully to the judges. A few people in the audience whispered. Simon tilted his head, curious but unconvinced. No one in that room, not even the man himself, fully understood that the next few minutes would rewrite everything. Stay with this story until the very end, because what happens in the final seconds is the reason dreams refuse to die. And if stories of courage and unexpected greatness move you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss moments like this. When asked about his background, the man spoke simply. He talked about growing up in the Philippines, about music playing softly in the background of his life while responsibilities shouted louder. Singing was never encouraged as a career, only tolerated as a hobby. Still, he sang at family gatherings, at small events, alone late at night when the world was quiet enough to listen. When Simon asked what he would perform, the answer came without hesitation, an Elvis song. The audience laughed lightly. Not cruelly, but knowingly. Elvis was sacred territory. Simon raised an eyebrow, a familiar expression that usually meant the clock was already ticking toward a polite rejection. The music started slow. Very slow. The first notes floated out, gentle and controlled, almost too careful. The voice was decent, but nothing extraordinary. Simon leaned back, arms crossed. One judge smiled politely. The audience clapped along, supportive but emotionally distant. It felt like another audition that would end with kind words and a firm no. But the singer wasn't rushing. His eyes closed, his breathing steady, as if he were counting something inside himself, waiting. Inside his mind, memories surfaced. Being told to choose something realistic. Watching others succeed while he stayed behind. Nearly giving up more times than he could count. He remembered promising himself that if he ever stood on a stage like this, he wouldn't hold anything back. As the verse ended, his shoulders relaxed. His grip on the microphone softened. The fear that once controlled his voice slowly loosened its hold. The second verse arrived, and so did the shift. His tone deepened, warmer now, more confident. The notes carried emotion instead of caution. A ripple moved through the audience. A judge stopped writing and looked up. Simon uncrossed his arms, his expression changing from boredom to interest. The singer lifted his head, eyes open now, no longer hiding. He wasn't trying to be Elvis, he was telling his own story through Elvis's music. The band grew stronger as the song built. The singer took a step forward, voice rising, not louder but fuller. You could hear the years in it, the waiting, the patience, the quiet suffering, the hope that refused to fade. The audience leaned in, pulled by something they couldn't explain. Simon leaned forward too, eyes locked on the stage. The laughter from earlier felt distant now, almost embarrassing. Then came the final section of the song. The moment of truth. The singer paused for half a second, just enough to make the room hold its breath, and then released everything. Power surged through his voice, raw and controlled at the same time. It filled the hall, bouncing off walls, hitting hearts. This wasn't an impression. This was conviction.